Well, Phil, you lost that fish. Well, okay, let's try another scud pattern and see if I can get a fish here and show you what one looks like.
Okay, well, I'd recommend we start with the Sparkle Scud here. It's a little bigger, imitates the larger Gammarus species, and it's got a nice dub body, lots of translucence, and that bead head, again, give that pitching erratic motion that common to all swimming scuds.
Well, now let's take a look at how it's tied.
The next fly we're going to tie is a Sparkle Blend Scud. This scud is designed at imitating the larger Gammarus family found in many of the productive lakes throughout western North America. I've placed a size 10 curved scud pupa hook into the jaws of the vise and slid on a 7/64 gold bead. This is a number 10. You can tie this fly weighted as well by wrapping lead wire around the hook, but when you do that, you have to be careful and use a straight shanked hook, because when you put lead wire on these scud hooks, the heaviest point now becomes the top of the bend and the hook rolls upside down. A characteristic I christened the keel effect. So keep that in mind. You can use beads or unweighted hooks on a curved scud hook, but when you want to weight them in traditional manner using lead wire, use a straight shank standard wet fly or even a dry fly hook. With the bead in place, I'm going to attach my tying thread directly behind the bead. Once I'm confident that thread is securely in place, I'm going to come up with my scissors and trim away the excess. I'm going to carry on and continue to cover that hook shank all the way down into the bend, about even with the back of the crushed down barb here. This simply provides a good foundation for our material so things don't roll all over the place on the smooth hook shank. I'm going to take some fine gold wire. You can tie these with silver wire, copper wire, to complement whatever color scheme you're using, and we can tie these in olive and dark olive and tan. Scuds are masters of camouflage, so let the local aquatic vegetation or a bottom substrate be your guide and pick a scud color that matches the local colors you see on the water. I'm going to place the gold wire into the bead to help hold it in place, and using open turns secure it down the hook shank, and you'll notice that I'm tying this wire along the near side of the hook. I like to tie my wire ribs along the near sides of the hook. It really helps the ribbing process and really gets that rib positioned for the first wrap, and then everything's gravy as you go forward. With the rib in place, we're going to take our tying thread and move it back up behind the bead. For the shell back, I'm going to use some 1/8 inch wide Stillwater Solutions Midge Flex material. This comes in a wide range of colors, all color coordinated to Western Stillwaters and Stillwaters all over the world. I'm going to place a section of this Midge Flex flat on top of the hook shank and go around the material once, twice with tying thread, and then apply tension. And what that does is collapses the thread from all four sides around the material so it doesn't twist and roll out of place. And we'll just bind that down until the Midge Flex is secure. It's about just slightly in front of the hook point, if you will. And we can just make sure that that's positioned properly. We're now going to form a dubbed body. To begin, I'm going to pull down about 3 inches of tying thread, wrap it around my forefinger, bring it back up to the hook shank, wind that bobbin around the hook 2 to 3 times to close up the loop. I'm going to rotate the loop up on top of the hook shank and secure it back along the top of the fly, much like you tie in any tail material. And what this does is further closes the loop nice and tight so it helps hold our materials in when we insert them. You can see that's nice and tight there, nothing's going to fall out. I'm going to carry the tying thread forward up to the back of the bead. With the dubbing loop now complete, I'm going to take a weighted dubbing whirl and insert the spring-loaded arms into the dubbing loop and just allow that to hang. We're now going to insert our Sparkle Blend dubbing mix into the dubbing loop. Now, dubbing loops are one technique that many fly tiers struggle with, and it's one you should really try and overcome, because dub bodies provide a natural translucence, and especially in stillwater flies, that's a key feature to look for in any good stillwater fly. Traditionally, most tiers, the first step is easy. You take out a pinch of dubbing, and you don't want to use too much, and you open up the dubbing loop and insert that pinch into the loop. Very straightforward. The troubles begin when you try and apply the second pinch. And most fly tiers immediately take a second pinch, and you want to make it about the same volume and consistency as the first, so not a lot. About the size of a dime, it should almost float in midair. when you let go of it. And the natural tendency is to insert it directly behind the first clump, and what you do by accident is open the loop up too wide and your first clump falls out and lands on the floor and starts all the frustration. What I recommend you do is open the loop right down at the base where the spring-loaded arms are, and just use your thumbnail to open that loop, insert the second clump, and slide it up into position right below the first clump. And just continue doing this process. Just open it up with a little bit of pinch and slide it into position until the loop is loaded. Again, you don't want to use a lot of dubbing. Little goes a long way. You want to have a nice, evenly balanced loop. If there's any sort of imbalanced areas, you can fix those up. It's your fly. You can preen and massage it how you want. Once that's ready to go, I'm going to start by gently spinning the head of the dubbing whirl here. So I don't accidentally, you don't want to spin things too fast, too quickly. You could accidentally throw everything out, especially with softer plumes. The dubbing's pretty good. And then once that's well and truly in place, we can just spin that nice and tight until those fibers radiate out about 90 degrees to the loop. You can see they're nice and the loop's balanced, and if there's things there that you don't like, you can certainly take those fibers out if you will. Wind that dubbing noodle forward, forming the body, and again, get into the habit of using that left thumb and forefinger for you right-handed tyers, and sweep those fibers back out of the way so we don't trap any of them down. And we're just going to wind those forward, one turn right next door to the other, right up directly behind the bead. And we'll come up, we'll take a couple of wraps to tie off our dubbing noodle, and then a couple of wraps in front to further lock it in place. Just insert our scissors and trim it right close on top. Kind of looks a bit scary right now, but we'll fix that soon enough. Again, we can stroke those fibers down and away because the dubbing suggests the legs and appendages in the natural scud as well. So we can sweep all those, we want those all down underneath. Now we're going to form the shell back by securing it in place with the copper rib, or a gold rib in this case. So we're just going to take a half a turn of that gold wire and hang it straight down below to position it. And then I'm going to take my midge flex, lay it over the top, over the back of the fly, and using gentle tension, I don't want you to pull super tight, but just to control it, and using a zigzag motion to avoid trapping any fibers down, wind the wire over the body in even turns. I'm not going for anatomical correctness here. I figure if fish can count our ribs, we've got far bigger problems. So we'll just wind those forward, and you can, with each wrap, you can position your shell back, and I apply tension by going over the top with a controlling wrap, and once I'm happy where that wrap is with the wire, I pull down at that point. Try to avoid applying tension right across the top because the torque of that action can roll your shellback material out of position. And we just come up, tie that wire off directly behind the gold bead with a couple of wraps, and a couple of wraps in front to lock it. And again, to save our scissors and to avoid having that annoying little tag stick out, we're going to place our thumbnail right at the tie-off point and patiently pull and twist until that wire breaks. And what happens is that wire disappears underneath the tying thread, avoiding that annoying tag, and you've extended the life of your scissors. So we'll just sweep those fibers out of the way, place a couple of wraps, and again we're going to use our little cement technique here to avoid getting too much cement into the fibers. I'm going to take some of our brushable fishing glue, and I'm just going to coat about 3 inches of the thread here. 3 inches rather, 3/8 of an inch. Pull the fibers away and just place 2 or 3 wraps directly behind the bead, and the tension of that action will squeeze that glue into the base without matting any of the fibers down. It's a great way for reinforcing peacock herl as well. And 2 to 3 wraps of our whip finish. Makes a very secure fly. Now, we're going to first, and this is in no particular order, but we're going to trim the shell back to length first. So I'm just going to come, I'm going to sweep and gather our shell back material. What I want to do is cup it like a piece of paper. I want to wrap it around and try to get both edges of the material touching. It's not a requirement to be perfect, but and then I'm not pulling tightly on this. I'm just supporting it, and I'm going to come in with my scissors on about a 30-degree angle and trim the remaining scud back or midge flex away, and you can see I've made a stubby little tail that simulates the natural telson or tail of the scud. Now we just got to clean this fly up a bit. So we're going to roughen the body. Going to roughen the body with a Velcro dubbing teaser. Velcro is a great material to use as a dubbing teaser because it's not as offensive, if you will, as a metal or a dubbing needle. Runs the risk of accidentally breaking material or wire. And then we're just going to trim these errant fibers sort of along the sides slightly and even with the base of the hook. And this fly can look scruffy. You can get a bit like trimming deer hair and spend all day with this, but that's what you want. You want this scruffy, suggestive looking pattern. And this is a great fly to use on an intermediate line over the shoals. It's a great searching fly. Trout consume an awful lot of scuds. It's what really helps them pack on the protein, and that's where you get those trout of 5, 8, 10, or double-digit proportions where they're over 10 pounds. And scuds, and especially these larger gammarus, are a prime staple that they really consume in large quantities. You should have lots of these in your fly box.